It's funny about fantasies. We all have them, but rarely do we get the opportunity to act them out in real life. They usually remain just that, fantasies, something to stimulate our minds and bodies and sit in that tiny area in the back of our thoughts, always hot to the touch but never fulfilled. My story is about a lifelong fantasy of mine, one which became sort of an obsession over the years. It was both immensely satisfying and full of guilt, for it involved cheating on my wife with her sister. I still can't believe that I fantasized about her so much, so let me fill you in on some background. My name is Sean. I've been married for 30 years. Our love life slowed down to the point where I can usually count on one hand the number of times in a year. It's been frustrating for me, and my thoughts frequently turn to fantasies I've developed over time. One of them, the biggest one, involves my wife's sister. My sister-in-law, Janice, has always been something of a free spirit, always taking her own road and doing things with a sense of adventure. I always admired her. I don't know when my admiration for her turned into emotion, though. I suppose it was something which grew over time until it filled my thoughts every time I saw her. She wasn't a classic beauty in the sense that she could turn heads, but I found her looks, with her long, curly dark hair and her olive skin, beautiful in every way that I was interested in. We were always friendly with each other and, as the years went by, found ourselves flirting with each other more and more. I always wondered what would happen if I made a move on her. She didn't get along with my wife all the time, so it seemed that if the opportunity presented itself, she might be receptive to something more than flirting. Unfortunately, that opportunity never materialized. She retired from her career job in the military a few years before I retired, so I was always asking her questions about being retired, mainly out of jealousy. I envied her freedom. Janice always laughed and said that my time was coming. In the last couple years of my working career, I traveled a lot to Southern California to help set up a new operations center my company had purchased. I always connected through Dallas/Fort Worth on my flights. Janice lived in nearby Arlington, and I always hoped I could swing by and see her. She even told me that if I needed a place to stay during my travels, I could stay with her. Janice was married once, but a nasty divorce kind of soured her on relationships, and she never had a long-term relationship. She used to joke that she was waiting for my clone, that I was the only one she would consider being with. When she said this, it wasn't accompanied by a laugh, so I always wondered how serious she really was. Anyway, I never had the opportunity to stop and see her, until the day before Thanksgiving on one of my last trips to SoCal. Our flight landed in DFW around 8 p.m. and the connecting flight was scheduled to depart around 9:30. However, the plane for my flight home developed mechanical problems and they had to cancel the flight. Because of the holiday, there were no available seats on any flight either that night or on Thanksgiving. I was, to put it mildly, screwed. I did have an idea, however. I knew that Janice didn't have plans for Thanksgiving because we asked her to spend it with us. She declined, saying she didn't want to travel, but I think she had a fight with my wife, which wasn't uncommon then. She really valued her freedom and threw it in her sister's face whenever she got the chance. My first call was to Deidre, to let her know that I probably couldn't make it home until Friday. She understood and suggested that I call Janice. That was wonderful, as it was now her idea that I spend 2 nights with her sister. I said that I would check with her. I then called Janice. I prayed that she didn't have plans. She picked up on the second ring. "Hello, Sean," she said as she answered the phone. "Is this my happy Thanksgiving call a day early?" "Hi, Jan," I told her. "It's a little more than that. I'm stranded at DFW and can't get home until Friday at the earliest. Do you have plans for the holiday? By the way, I think I'm the only person who calls her January." She never rebuked me for calling her that, and over the years it became our little endearment. It so happens I have a small bird I'm planning to stuff and throw in the oven tomorrow. I was figuring on a quiet holiday alone, but you are always welcome to share it with me. Does my sister know about your plight? "Jan," She's the one who suggested I call you. I was going to, but she mentioned it before I could. She did she? I guess it's on her if we have a good time. Give me a few minutes and I'll pick you up. Maybe we can stop somewhere on the way here and have a pre-Thanksgiving drink. I know just the place, it's nice and quiet where we can talk. My mind was already working overtime at the prospect of being with her for 2 nights, but those last comments really made me wonder if this was the night I should do something about my desires. I decided to let the night unfold and we'd see where it would lead. Janice picked me up soon after that, pulling up in her BMW convertible. It was still mild in the Dallas area, so she had the top down. She invested at an early age while in the Army, so she was able to afford a nice retirement. The Beamer was one of her few indulgences, but she always looked so good in it. Her long hair was tied in a ponytail and she had a scarf on, which made her look so chic. She would always punch me whenever I told her that, but she knew I was only teasing. Even at our age, she still took my breath away. She got out of the car and gave me a hug. She kissed me on the cheek as we broke the embrace and smiled at me. We drove a short while and she turned into a strip plaza parking lot. After she parked the car we got out and she immediately lit a cigarette. Janice had smoked for as long as I knew her. I had smoked for a long time but gave it up about 15 years ago. With her, the act of smoking a cigarette was somehow sexy, the way she did it appealed to me kind of way. She always offered one to me and I almost always accepted it. I didn't want her to feel alone as she smoked. Once we were done we went inside. Janice was a wine drinker, so we shared a bottle of Merlot and talked about our lives. I told her that her sister seemed to be pulling away from me and she just shrugged her shoulders as if to say that it wasn't anything new to her. As we drank, she laughed a lot, another thing which made her very appealing to me. She wasn't afraid to loosen up around me and I felt at ease with her. After the wine was gone we decided to go to her place. Once there, I went to the spare room and unpacked some of my things as she changed clothes and said she was getting some more wine open for us. When I was done I went into the kitchen. As we went into the family room, she brushed against me. I froze in my tracks and stared at her, lost in my feelings for her. I leaned toward her and kissed her lightly on the lips. All of my pent-up emotions over the last 30 years were behind that kiss, and I was trembling like a schoolboy as our lips met, worried that I had done something to ruin the moment. To my surprise, she returned the kiss. When we broke it off, she stepped back and smiled. "Good Jesus, Mary and Joseph," she said. "It only took you 30 years or so to finally do that, Sean. What took you so long?" Relief isn't a strong enough word to describe my feelings at that point. I was so worried that she would reject me that her response caught me off guard. "Jan, how long?" I said. "How long have you thought about that kiss? Please tell me I'm not dreaming." "Oh, I'd like to say it was the moment I first saw you, but it was probably not long after that. Once I got to know you I thought about why Deidre was always the lucky one. If I had met you first things would have been a lot different. Let's take this wine in and you can start a fire." I took the bottle and glasses and placed them on the table near the sofa. I then got some wood and kindling arranged and lit the fire. As it began to catch I poured wine for both of us. Janice was sitting on the sofa. She patted the cushion next to her and motioned for me to sit next to her. "Okay Sean," she began. "It's truth time. How long have you thought about me? You be honest with me and I promise to do the same." "Okay," I began. "I had been dating Deidre for a couple weeks before I met you. You were taking a break from college and we had come home for the holidays. I went to pick her up for a date and you answered the door. It was your face that caught my attention, the way your hair framed it, with all those curls. I was already thinking I met the wrong sister. Since we're being honest, it didn't hurt your image with me when I saw you walk across the room and your t-shirt was going in different directions, if you know what I mean." Janice laughed. "Yes, I know that my braless look attracted attention, but I had no idea that my face caught your eye before. She reached out upon saying this and took my hand in hers. I think it was that weekend, when we had a chance to just talk, that I realized how nice you really were, and are to this day. Sean, I'm going to be blunt now. Deidre never deserved you. She can be a petty, vengeful person at times. You overlooked that all these years, and it nearly broke my heart to see her wind up with the best guy in the room. Believe me, I didn't overlook it. I knew that she has a mean streak in her, but I chose to let it go rather than cause a big to-do over it. Jan, you left for the military not long after that weekend. Was it something you had planned, or was it a sudden decision? Honestly, Sean, I had considered it before I met you, but after getting to know you I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to keep my feelings in check around you. The army was a way for me to prevent something bad from happening. I could have ruined everything if I had stayed, and been a pariah in my family in the process. Looking back, it was the best decision I made in my life. I made a career out of it and now I'm happy in my retirement. Maybe I went into it for the wrong reasons, but it led to a good life, with the exception being my own marriage. She held my hand the entire time she confessed her feelings toward me. Jan set down her wine glass and leaned closer. We knew the kiss was coming, but we held back, as if a shock would occur when our kissed. Finally, I let go of her hand and pulled her face to mine. I kissed her tenderly. "Phew, you are some kisser," I whispered. "I want Y0US0 badly right N0W. Jan giggled. "Then what are you doing talking about it?" "I'm here with Y0U and I want Y0U. Sean, you were wonderful. I can't tell you how much I needed that, and to have you doing it to me. I've waited so long for this moment and I don't want to let the opportunity slip away." Can you guess what happens next? I broke the silence. "Jan, you were wonderful. It was everything I had hoped for, you were everything I imagined you would be. Why don't we get that wine?" "I thought you'd never ask," she laughed. "I need a cigarette as well. Do you mind?" "Not at all, sis. It's your house. How about we share one?" She gave me a puzzled look when I called her sis, then realized that I was making light of the situation and got up. "I'll be right back, brother." She returned with a corkscrew and 2 cigarettes. I opened the wine as she lit our smokes. We lay like that on the sofa, smoking and drinking and making small talk. "Maybe you should wait a little longer before you call Deidre. I don't think you're in any condition to talk just yet." "You're right about that." After I called Deidre to tell her all was well on my end. I wasn't lying, either. For the first time in a long, long time I felt good, really good. I joined Janice in the kitchen for some coffee and a cigarette. We both knew we needed to discuss what had happened since last night. My emotions were all jumbled, but there were some things which needed to be said and decisions which needed to be made. We decided to make and enjoy a nice Thanksgiving dinner and then we would discuss the elephant in the room. We worked all morning in the kitchen. I cleaned the turkey while Jackie prepared the dressing. When she was done I filled the cavity with the stuffing while Janice made the pumpkin pie filling and poured it into the 2 crusts she had made yesterday morning. We then put the bird in the oven and relaxed. There were more than a few little kisses between us as we worked, and that made us feel like young lovers. Over what I must consider to be the best Thanksgiving dinner I've had in years, we discussed what had happened and where we want to go with it. "Is this the point of no return?" I asked her. We both gave into what we've felt for years, but is that it? Do we just walk away and pretend it didn't happen, holding memories and nothing else? Do we run away together and live happily ever after, regardless of the consequences? I know that I'll never be able to go through the rest of my life and never hold you again. I've known it all these years, but I never allowed myself the luxury of saying it. I love you, January. What do you want? Janice put down her fork and took a deep breath. Sean, I've waited too long to just walk away after 1 or 2 nights, but at the same time I'm not prepared to destroy my sister's idea of her perfect life. We don't get along very much these days, if we ever got along at all, but going public with this would hurt too many people. There are your kids to consider. It would be bad enough if their folks split up, but even worse if they knew that it was their aunt who played a big role in it. No, I've decided what I want. And what is that? I asked. I want us to continue to see each other, whenever and wherever we can. We'll have to be careful and it will mean that we will be sneaking around, but this is what I want. I haven't done anything selfish for as long as I can remember, but this time I want to do something for me. Sean, I've loved you, or at least the thought of what you are to me, for all these years. Now that we've admitted our feelings for each other, I feel that the hard part is over. Sure, it will be difficult and we might go a long time between visits, but I'm prepared to do that for. I've been so lonely here and there was always this hope, this dream that somehow we could get together. Now that this day has come, my answer is no. No, I'm not willing to give up on you or on us that easily. I want whatever time with you that I can get. Is that something you can live with? I reached across the table and took her hands in mine. I'll do anything you wish, my love. Anything. If this is what you want, then I'll do whatever I have to do to make it happen for you. Maybe someday we can be together all the time, but I'll take whatever we can get. And then I kissed her. It was possibly the most tender, sweetest kiss I've ever given anyone in my life, because it meant something more beautiful than anything I could give her, and that was my promise. I promise, January. I promise that I'll be there for you whenever and wherever I can. I promise. Then Janice began to cry. They weren't tears of regret or of shame, they were tears of joy. She had been alone for so many years now and the right man was there, but unavailable. With our actions on this holiday, bound together by chance, we had found each other and vowed to continue seeing each other. Maybe that was wrong in the eyes of others, but not to ours. We had both struggled and now we had an opportunity to do something for ourselves. I held her close and helped her dry her eyes. Hey, sweetie, I said. You can't cry just yet. We have to eat some pumpkin pie before we're done. How about I go get one of the pies for us? That got her laughing. You have such a way, you know that, don't you? No more tears, my darling. I'll be okay now. Oh, don't forget the whipped cream. I got a lot of it in case we wanted to use it for something else, if you know what I mean. We ate our pie, cleaned everything up and loaded the dishwasher together. Now we were ready for some us time. After a smoke on her patio, we went inside and snuggled on the sofa while we watched TV. It was one of the most peaceful evenings I can recall having in a long time. It just seemed natural being with Jan, as if we had always been together. As good as it was, there was a hint of sadness to it, because we knew that sometime tomorrow I would be flying home, back to my life. I was determined to put those feelings aside and concentrate on the here and now. I was happy because I would get to fall asleep and wake up next to someone who wanted me. That alone was enough to put a smile on my face, one that Janice caught out of the corner of her eye and made her follow suit. Yes, we were happy despite the potential roadblocks we would have to traverse. And the strangest thing happened to us. We came together, within seconds of each other. That's the stuff of stories, not usually attained in real life. It was sweet, and as we basked in the afterglow of the moment we proclaimed our love for each other. In the morning I woke up to the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Janice came into the room, bearing 2 cups and a smile, nothing else. I could get used to this, I thought. I had to say something to her about leaving. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Jan, I really have to call the airline. I'd love to just stay here with you and let everything go back home, but I can't. Not yet. We'll get there, but we have to be patient. I promise I'll be back, no matter what it takes. I know, she said sadly. I'd love nothing more than for you to move in here with me, and maybe we'll get that chance, but we can't do it right now. I love you, Sean, I think I always have. I'm so happy that you love me too. These 2 days have made everything worthwhile. After a breakfast together I called the airline and set up a flight. I then called Deidre and told her of my plans. Later, in the afternoon, Janice drove me to the airport. We didn't say anything during the drive, but I held her free hand when I could. She squeezed it to let me know she loved me. She stopped at the departures area and we got out of her car. The tears were already running freely down her face and it nearly broke my heart to see that. I held her tightly and kissed away her tears. I love you, Sean. Please say you mean all of it, that you'll come back when you can. I love you too, January. I've never meant anything as much as I do right now. Of course I'll be back. We have to make this work for now. I hope we can be together soon. I turned to enter the airport. Before I went through the sliding doors to ticketing I turned to look back and wave. Janice was still standing there, but she wasn't crying. She had a smile on her face that could light up the whole airport and she was waving vigorously. I ran back to her, took her in my arms and gave her the biggest kiss I could. We held each other tightly for a moment and then I turned to go home and begin planning our new future together.